निरञ्जनं नित्यं अनन्तरूपं भक्तानुकम्पाधृतविग्रहं वै ईशावतारं परमेशमीड्यं तं रामकृष्णं शिरसा नमामः. Namaste and welcome to our Saturday session on guided meditation. This is the 16th session. As usual, we will begin with our guided meditation. So, let us sit up upright, keeping our back, neck and head in a relaxed upright position. The body is strong and steady and you are in a comfortable position. Direct your attention to various limbs of your body, and as you do so, visualize that each part is healthy and strong. Direct your attention to your toes, feet, ankle, calves, knees, thighs, the back, stomach, chest, the shoulders, elbows, arms and hands, the neck, face, head, and the whole body. Visualize that every cell is healthy, every organ is healthy, the whole body is healthy, filled with the pure light. Now focus your mind on your breath. Breathe in and out in a relaxed, rhythmic way, inhaling and exhaling deeply. As you breathe in, visualize that you are breathing in pure light that recharges every cell of your body, fills every corner of your mind with its effulgence, and brings peace and harmony and purity to your whole body and mind. Breathe in this way 3 times. Now let us pray for the welfare of all. We are all parts of the same reality, the same universal soul, connected with each other, and therefore the welfare of others is also conducive to our welfare. We are waves in the same ocean of divine consciousness. Pray that may all be happy, may all be joyful, may all be peaceful, may all seek the divine truth within themselves. Send out your prayers to your right, visualize your thoughts going out forever, helping and uplifting all those it comes across with. Send your prayers to your left, in front of you, behind you, above and below, and in all directions, with you as the center, with the divine seated in your heart. Visualize this wonderful prayer for the welfare of all beings, radiating in all directions. Now visualize your whole body full of light, Visualize that the body, physical body, is surrounded by your mental body. The mental body is finer and pervades the whole of the physical body. And visualize your causal body, the body of knowledge, which is even finer than the mental body, and it interpenetrates, pervades the mental subtle body also. And you visualize an ocean of consciousness that interpenetrates all the three bodies. Out of that ocean of consciousness, the causal body came out, then the mental body, and the physical body. And eventually, the all three will merge into that ocean of consciousness. In the core of your being, in the ocean of consciousness, visualize a beautiful lotus, fully bloomed, full of freshness and fragrance. In the center of that lotus, visualize a beautiful flame of light. It spreads its radiance in all directions and vitalizes the causal body, the mental body, and the physical body with its purifying radiance. You may replace that flame with any divine form of your choice and visualize that the light emanating from the divine is the light of spiritual knowledge that dispels the darkness of ignorance. It's a light of absolute purity that fills all the three bodies with its holiness. It's a light of supreme peace that fills you through and through with serenity and tranquility. It's a light of absolute bliss that fills you with inner joy. It's a light of absolute peace, beauty and freedom and strength and fearlessness and all divine qualities. That is our true self, our Paramatma. Focus your whole mind on the divine form. Visualize it to be living, alive, full of love and compassion, eager to bestow all those divine qualities on you. Open your mind and heart to receive that divine. In the spirit of surrender, pray for spiritual knowledge, for devotion, for enlightenment. Concentrate your whole mind on the divine form and fill your whole mind with His presence. You may repeat the mantra if you are initiated, or the Gayatri mantra, or the Shabda Brahman Om, or if you wish, Om Namo Bhagavate Ramakrishnaya Namaha. Be alert and watchful of your mind, so that the whole mind is occupied with that mantra. And if the mind wanders away anywhere, bring it back to the divine in that holy company. Meditate in this way for 5 minutes. Asato ma sadgamaya Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya Mrityurmamritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. So in this way, I hope you are all meditating regularly with great discipline and perseverance. And as you practice your meditation and begin to develop a taste for it, you should feel an inner joy, an inner peace, and a presence and companionship of something wonderful within you. And as that relationship and presence develops, you will find that the tendency of the mind to seek company of outside people or seek enjoyments outside, or know things of outside, that will diminish in proportion as we move inwards. The more you practice, the closer you come to the fire, the more warmth and light you will feel. Until that presence becomes a living presence, it's no longer an imagination only, and you can feel its radiance, its grace, its blessing radiating from within you, recharging you, supplying and providing everything that we need. That is the purpose of this regular practice of meditation. Connecting ourselves to that infinite reservoir of purity and goodness and power and bliss. The stronger the connection is, the more we can draw out of it. I mentioned in the last meditation session that the repetition of the mantra is a great help in keeping the mind anchored on the divine form within you. You have to understand that this mantra is not merely some words, but there's a spiritual energy and vibration built within that mantra. And as you focus your whole mind and meditate or repeat the mantra with great concentration, you will feel that vibration recharging you from the depths of your being. The Supreme Being, the divine form that you visualize, and the mantra are not different, they are identical. Sometimes you might have difficulty in visualizing the form and simultaneously repeating the mantra. It does not matter. Nam, Nami, Abhed. Either one, they are two aspects of the same reality. But your whole mind should be filled with that mantra so that there is no space, so to say, of any other thought creeping in there. It's just like zooming into within yourself, and all that mental space is totally occupied that mantra, and you can feel that mantra rising from the depths of your being, unrolling, folding up, and then falling within itself. And as it does so, the energy that it radiates fills your whole being with a purifying, uplifting presence within. You can feel that energy. And as you soak yourself into it, you dive into it, you can, in that mantra recharges and vitalizes us from within, right from the depths of our being up to our physical, and radiates that energy around us so that whoever comes around in our company, they also feel that divine power radiating out. It's just like a magnet has got a magnetic field. A spiritual person who meditates constantly on the divine develops a spiritual field, and that spiritual field is a great protection. It's like a spiritual armor, so to say. It's like a firewall. So when negative ideas and thoughts that surround us in our atmosphere, when they come, they get repelled by this power of spirituality that's within us. That's how we can protect ourselves and and dive deep into ourselves and have that great connection. Now, we have been over this last 15 weeks, so to say, going repeatedly through this process of meditation. This is just the beginners. If you have been initiated, you would have some more specific instructions given to you by your spiritual teacher. Follow them. But for those who are new to meditation and are interested to know a little bit, these sessions are to help such people. Over these sessions, we have been going through this process where we do what is called asana. We've learned how we should sit properly, keeping ourselves in a relaxed, upright, steady posture. We have focused on pranayama, breath. We have learned how and why we should pray for the welfare of all beings, because we are all parts of the same ocean of consciousness. Then we have learned about how to visualize ourselves in a more integrated and holistic way, that we are not the body. Actually, the body is the most insignificant part of us. We have a mental body, a subtle body. Behind that is even causal body, which is the body of knowledge and intelligence. Behind is that absolute beautiful Atman, which is our true nature. We are embodied. We have to go beyond these bodies to our original self. That is the process, and in that process we visualize the divine form inside our heart, establish our relationship with Him. It's a living presence, and we try to occupy and fill our whole mind with the divine form. That process, when it's perfected, becomes dhyana. In the process of when it's dhyana, then there will be no interruption in your connection or your prayer or your mindfulness of the divine reality. And samadhi is that perfected state when the meditator, that is me, and my subject of meditation, which is the divine form, and this process of contemplation, the three become one. That means at that time we are non-different from our higher self. We have become one with it, just like a drop of water in the ocean, it just becomes one with that ocean. Likewise, the jiva merges itself in Shiva, the Paramatman. There are two other steps, preliminary steps in this 8 steps of yoga as has been taught by Maharishi Patanjali. And these are the Yama and Niyama. These are the moral and ethical disciplines that we all have to practice throughout the day, throughout our lifetimes. These form the foundations of our spiritual life. And no tall building of spirituality can be constructed without having this solid foundation of a true moral and ethical character. So all those who aspire to develop a spiritual life have to understand without any compromise that there cannot be any compromise with our moral and ethical life. So the scriptures mention that there are these 2 steps called Yama, which are the restraints, and Niyama, which are the observances that all of us have to practice. You see, the Atman is there all the time. It's not that we have to bring it or create it. But we have become so identified with this body-mind, and the mind has been so conditioned by this outside world, our experiences from previous lifetimes, our experiences in this lifetime, dependent on the environment and the community and the society that we live in. And this conditioned mind itself has become the barrier in which, when we see ourselves, we don't see our Atman nature, we see a body. We see thoughts and ideas. So this mind has to be purified or deconditioned, reconditioned, so to say even. And these mantras in meditation facilitate that process. Now, the scriptures say that for the process of purification, to burn the impurities, so to say, of the mind, remove the dross, so to say, one has to practice Yama and Niyama. So Yama means these 5 observances of ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha. Ahimsa means non-violence or non-injury in thought, word and deed to all beings throughout the universe, including ourselves. We should not be violent and do self-harm. That is also important. So non-violence in thought, in word, in deed, for all beings throughout the universe, including ourselves. That is ahimsa, non-violence or non-injury. And in the scriptures they say ahimsa paramo dharma. Ahimsa, non-injury, is the supreme dharma. It is the param tapa, it is the highest austerity. Being always alert that I do not do any injury to all beings. Satya is truthfulness. Ramakrishna has repeatedly said that in this Kali Yuga, truthfulness is the austerity of Kali Yuga. Austerity means tapasya. Tapasya means it's not easy. It is hard. It is tapasya. It is going against the nature. It is the nature of the mind is to go down. Tapasya is that will go against it. That means it will generate friction. Friction will generate heat. Heat means tapasya. So, in that fire of tapasya, all the impurities are burnt and the mind becomes pure. And of them, truthfulness in this age, he says, is the tapasya. Being truthful in thought, word, and deed. Mon mukh ek kara, he will tell in Bengali. The mind, what you think in your own heart, and what you say, speak, they should be in harmony. That means we should not harbor one thing in our own hearts and say another thing just because it is nice to say, or as they say, it is politically correct or socially correct and we want to please others. No, that harmony should be there, that the two should be in resonance, so to say. We'll come to these ideas again. This is just a little bit of introduction. Satya. Asteya means non-stealing, not taking anything that does not rightfully belong to you, that one has not earned. It could be as subtle as if you are a worker and at work you are not doing the work that you are supposed to be, whiling away your time and at the end of the fortnight collecting the salary. That is something that did not belong to you because you did not work for it. So when the mind becomes so subtle and sensitive, you will begin to pick these things up. So, asteya. Brahmacharya. In a broad sense, it means control of the senses. In the specific sense, it means chastity or continence. There is a very subtle spiritual energy within us. And that energy, if it is dissipated in a very gross physical way, then the body loses its vitality and nourishment in the first place. And secondly, that energy is very much necessary because once that energy is restrained and contained and controlled, so to say, and then through spiritual practice it is transmuted and sublimated, so to say, it becomes a very powerful spiritual energy which in the language of the teachings is called the ojas, and that gets stored. It rises from the lower chakras, the lower centers of our consciousness, and gets stored in the brain. And what we call the magnetic personality of a person, the charisma, that special power by which that person spreads a charm and influence others, that comes from that ojas that accumulates in the brain, and that ojas is produced by transmuting this energy that is harnessed through continence and chastity. That is why in all spiritual traditions, chastity or continence is the foundation of it. Brahmacharya. So, ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha. Aparigraha means non-receiving of gifts or things from other people. It's not when people give you something, it's not just a physical thing. The character of that person and the samskaras of that or the tanmatras of that person come along with that. And if that person is a good person, holy person, then those tanmatras enter into you. But if it is not, if there are expectations and the thing has been acquired in an improper way, money that has been earned in a way that is not pure, then one receives that, and it's not only the thing itself, but the inner essence or the subtle essence that comes with it. And it will have an impact on the receiver. So, the scriptures say that one should not receive things from others as much as possible, and it also says that when we receive something from others, we we become obligated to that person also. We lose our sense of freedom. For example, at work somebody comes and gives a present to a boss or something, and next day he gives something else, and after every time he gives, the other person receives. Now next time, on one day, if the person who has been giving the gifts asks for something in return, the person feels obliged to give. And that in a very subtle way we become bound to people. So to maintain our freedom from all obligations to others, we don't want to receive things. If you receive, you pass it to somebody else. If you can't say no to it, take it, but don't take it to yourself, give it to somebody else. These 5 restraints, ahimsa, non-injury, satya, truthfulness, tapa, ahimsa, satya, asteya, non-stealing, brahmacharya, continence or chastity, and non-receiving of gifts. These are called the yamas. Apart from this, there are the niyamas. Niyamas means these are the observances, niyam. What are these? Saucha, Santosha, Tapa, Swadhyaya, Ishwar, Pranithana. We'll go over this in detail over the next few classes, but I'm just giving you the overall view. Saucha means purity. Purity in thought, word, in deed. Purity of body, purity of mind, purity of intellect. So that is very, very important. Saucha. Santosha means contentment. Contentment with things, material things, worldly things. You require very little if you think very deeply. Most of the things that you have, you hardly use. A big house with 5 bedrooms, you might have, you sleep in only one room. What's the point of having so much? So you'll find that when you have too many things, too many possessions, they begin to possess us, because we have to give our time and effort and energy in maintaining them, taking care of them, and that's so much loss of a vital resource which can be utilized for a spiritual person. So if we are content with very basic necessities of simple clothes, food, shelter, and the rest of the time that you save and the rest of the energy that you save now can be directed towards a spiritual goal. So contentment with the basic necessities, simple food, simple clothing, and simple accommodation, simple company, content with your own self, so to say, in your own company. And you can have a discontent, but it can be a divine discontent. You're not happy with your own spiritual status. I'm still so much identified with this body-mind complex. Still there's so much ignorance is there, that I have read the scriptures and understood intellectually that there is something called an Atman within me, which is ever free, yet I have not experienced it, and therefore I am restless for it. You try to remind yourself, see, every day, another day has gone, another week has gone, another year has gone. This is nothing to celebrate, because the real thing that we are seeking for still has not been achieved, and life is ebbing away. When we think deeply like this, you'll find that that particular thought or idea will begin to, the idea of freedom and liberation will become living and alive, and it will begin to draw that time and energy to itself. So, contentment, santosha, saucha, santosha, tapa. Tapa means austerity. Austerity means, tapasya means, it comes from the Sanskrit word tapa, means heat. Heat is generated when we are going against our animal or lower nature, so to say. The senses are trying to drag us outside. We try to restrain that senses. The senses are like the wild horses that have been yoked to this chariot of this body, and the ropes are the reins, and the buddhi is the charioteer, and behind that is the Atman, that is the rider. Now suddenly the buddhi wants to turn around and have a conversation with the Atman inside, but the horses are running amok, so to say. So he tightens the ropes of the mind, but the horses are in full gallop. So how do you restrain that? That force and energy that you will feel that's necessary to restrain the outgoing tendency of the senses, that is tapas. So tapas of the senses, control of the senses. Tapas of the speech, restraining your talking unnecessarily. Should not talk, because that is dissipation of mental energy. In meditation, we are trying to control the mind. Yoga is chitta vritti nirodha, cessation of the inner thoughts. But the thoughts are an internal conversation that we are having, talking within ourselves. We want to restrain that internal conversation. But if we do not restrain the external conversation that we are having with people, how can that internal one happen? So, in the Vivek Chudamani, Acharya Shankara says, Yogasya prathama dwaram vang nirodha. The first step to yoga, prathama dwaram to yoga, is vak vang nirodha, restrain of speech. Maintain silence, don't talk. Before you say something, think and say, do I need to say this? And you'll find most of the time that you can do away with that conversation. It's not important. Say what you need to say in a minimum precise way. And you'll find that when you say, people say, these are people of few words. They don't blabber and talk about unnecessarily. And when they speak, everyone listens. And those who just talk and ramble around without any substance and content, no one pays any attention to. There's simply so much waste of mental energy. So a yogi or a spiritual aspirant becomes very alert and say, I will practice this restraint of speech, and that is a form of tapas. There is physical tapas, there is mental tapas, there is tapas of the speech, mind and body. We'll talk about that in more detail. So saucha is purity, santosha, contentment, tapa is the austerity of body, mind and speech. Swadhyaya, it means study of the scriptures which contain the spiritual truths, which are recordings of those who have experienced those truths. So read the Gita, the Upanishad, the Bible. Contemplate on the meaning and try to understand the essence of it so that we can have a correct understanding of what we are trying to achieve. It also means repetition of the mantra. That is another type of swadhyaya, because the mantra actually is the link that connects us to the inner source of knowledge. When our mind resonates, by repeating the mantra, and mantras are all energy forms, vibrating, pulsating energy. When you repeat that with great concentration, that whole being, every cell of our body, whole mind begins to resonate and pulsate at that particular frequency. And as this becomes, energy is infused into it, your whole body, mind is now like a pulsating field of energy radiating out. And it synchronizes with the deeper layer of our being, which is our chosen ideal. And when the two become connected, so to say, then we have that particular experience of vision, and that knowledge of that reality flashes into us at a very deeper level. It's not a conceptual knowledge, it is an experiential knowledge. Conceptual knowledge is like you know something through ideas, thoughts, words and deeds. You can talk about honey in so many words, read. But experiential knowledge is putting that honey on your tongue and tasting it. You might not be able to experience it. Religion is realization. It is having that experience of the Atman. So that means we have to dive deep within ourselves, and the mantra is the means by which we can make that connection. So swadhyaya is repetition of this mantra with great concentration. It could be pranava japa, repetition of omkara. It could be mantra that has been given to you by a spiritual teacher, guru. It could be the Gayatri mantra, which is trying to make a connection with this infinite of this divine being which has created and permeated the three worlds, which is effulgent like the sun within us, and we pray to the divine to attract our mind towards itself. So that is Swadhyaya. And finally, the last of the Niyamas is Ishwar Pranithana, surrender to the divine. Ishwara is that cosmic being who has that sense of identity with this whole universe. We have said in the Vedanta that there is this macrocosm, which is the external universe, all throughout the all pervading, and there is this individual, which is the microcosm, the individual, the Jivatma, so to say. So at the physical level, we say the technical word is that it is Ishwar, and the macrocosmic aspect is Virat. It is one, really, an ocean of matter in which the suns and planets and this earth and a smallest part of material being are part of that ocean of matter. And our body is just one bundle in that, which we have borrowed for the time being, certain atoms and molecules and whatever, and this will also pass away. Okay, it's not your own car, it's a rented car, so to say. This is a rented body at the physical level. We said that in the middle level is the subtle mind, which is the mental space. The cosmic mind is called Brahma in the mythological language, or Hiranyagarbha, the golden orb in the language of the Vedanta. And in the individual level, it's called Tejasa, the luminous shining one, full of ideas, sublime ideas and thoughts. And finer than that, we said, is at the macrocosmic level, that cosmic being who is called Ishwara, who is identified with all the beings in the universe. So when the Ishwara says I, it means we all are part of him. Just like when I say I, all the cells in my body, I feel they are part of me. The Ishwara is that cosmic being, the source out of which this whole universe has come. So Ishwar Pranidhana is prayer and surrender to the divine being who is the real self inside us, the power from which all knowledge, all purity, goodness and everything emanates. And whatever we do in thought, word, in deed, every action has a reaction as a result. That result is offered to this Supreme Being. We acknowledge that we exist because He exists. We acknowledge that the power that flows through us is His power, and the result is offered to Him. In that way, when we establish that spirit, this relationship and this surrender, where we do not appropriate any agency to ourselves that I am the doer, that He is the doer, and as such the result also goes to Him because He is the real doer, and this body and this mind is only an instrument that He uses. When we can establish ourselves in this idea, you'll find that all anxiety goes, because it's not for you to worry about. You don't appropriate the result to yourself. You are not the controller. Ishvara is the controller. All tension and stress and everything automatically disappears. And in that calm mind, where we have surrendered ourselves and all our thought, words and deeds to the Supreme Being, that mind which is not agitated by all this doership and enjoyership and responsibility and duty and all that type of thing, that calm mind we can meditate better. Otherwise, all disturbance come and keep on unruffling and unsettling our mind. So these two, Yama and Niyama, Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha, Saucha, Santosha, Tapas, Swadhyaya, Ishwar Pranidhana. These are the moral and ethical disciplines that we all have to practice all the times, universally, everywhere. And these are called the great vows, Mahavratas. On this foundation, our spiritual life has, the tall building of our spiritual life has to be established. We'll talk in more detail on each one of them now and say why they are so important, how they are to be practiced, and what are the means when this tendency comes to do something, how do we restrain ourselves and check ourselves. And that, of course, in the center of it has to be the central idea, that you are so much alert to the idea of self-realization, and that whatever, there has to be no compromise when it comes to establishing ourselves in that, or preparing ourselves for that. So we'll go into more detail about this. You can read this in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras in great detail if you want, and think about it, because when there is clarity, then when the situation arrives in your, you'll know how to react and how to respond. You don't have to go through the intellectual process. This idea has to go so deep inside you, so that when there's a tendency to do some harm or say something that is painful to others, you can check and restrain yourself and not do it, and then afterwards feel bad, I should not have said, and I say I'm sorry and this and that. We should be able to check it before that it translates into an action. It means we have to be very alert and on guard. And if we know the consequences of these things, then that will be a restraining factor. So continue meditating, do some thinking and study on these two steps of Yama and Niyama, and we will take this up next Saturday. Until then, keep safe, keep happy. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tassat Sri Ram